My name is Richard Stevens. I'm the head of SmartDispense, head of technical services at Heineken, and we're going to kick off this afternoon talking about digital and technology. I am delighted to be joined today by an international award winner in the field of emerging tech. We're going to try and, start with where we are now. Then we're going to talk a little bit how tech overlaps with some social responsibility and how it interfaces with us as human beings. We are going to then get a bit techie and talk data and AI, and it would be remiss not to use the opportunity with Elena to pinch a bit of a glimpse into the future and what that might look like for us as consumers, but particularly for us within the industry. So if we do start with where are we now, let's just sort of set the scene for the audience in terms of where are we now with tech, what sort of innovations are out there that excite you at the moment?
So I think, we would like to say that COVID is like far gone, but it's obviously not. So it's still a lot of learnings and a lot of uncertainty after post-COVID. As a whole, I think socially we're still finding what I'm calling, people are finding their social geographies, which obviously this affects the industry where people are at. Are they at home? Are they at work? And so on. People has had a lot of time to rethink about their values and the purpose of what they do, and to find a better balance into life and work. But the most interesting part on the technology side for me is how all of that has driven tech literacy. So in a way, as a technologist, I find that for the first time, the tech barriers for people to adopt new technologies are the lowest. It's unprecedented. So a lot of technologies, the barrier actually to entry to market is not the technologies or the price or the access or the scale and capabilities, is actually human factors. So I'm very excited mainly for that. People are more confident to take a new, to adopt a new tech. Not just businesses, but also the users.
And with so much going on, are there any sort of non-negotiables that you would consider?
Okay, here there is a lot of noise. I guess that's what I hope this presentation helps with, is like there is so much out there that I can understand that, what are the top three in a way. I was thinking about this one and I thought, in reality it's not about the what, it's not about this technology, that technology, because that can change and it has to be adapted to your specific area. So what's important is to think on the why. So I kind of have three sections here. One of the whys is how can you become more of an educator, and that goes out and in. I'll explain what I mean by this. So how can you be an educator outwards? That's probably how you can use more social media. And a social media that is more about video content, live video content, or even using audio rooms to create content. And then in is how you are an educator for yourself, your business and your staff. And that's how you use data. So I think education is a very important part. Then in that way, as an educator, is how you can shift through all the content when you are speaking outwards in social media to talk about what's truly important for your customers and for your business. And then the same with data. You have a role to shift through all the data that you have access to find what is more meaningful. So that's your role as an educator. The other one is your role to reward your customers. So we are not using enough the advantages that technology bring us to track loyalty and rewards, and how restaurants and brands are becoming lifestyle brands. So that's another part, and it's the same how these rewards manifest towards your public with loyalty, and internally with your staff as well, making them accountable. For example, if your staff participate in social media more and they're more visible, you make them count so they become accountable. I don't know if that makes sense. And then the last one is more automation. And automation, in a way out, it's about customization. So how can you automate and give more options to the way people can customize what they need? And inwards automation is how it affects your seamless fulfillment. And then I don't know if you will agree with those or if you have anything to add.
I think I think a lot of what you say makes sense. I think in terms of when I look at it from an industry point of view, some of the non-negotiables that we've talked about, lots of us in this room are probably starting with consumer insight and trying to understand the patterns and changing behaviours of our consumers. So tech that helps us provide data, that helps us with that analysis is critical. And then the build from that is that insight gives you different ways that you can communicate with customers or consumers that build on that insight. I think for us as a brewer, we spend, working in the on-trade and the hospitality side, looking at digital connectivity and how we are communicating with our customers and how they are interacting with us and how we use technology to do that in a way that suits different types of personas. And then if you think about some of the key subjects and topics we're talking about today, when you think about mental energy, how using tech can help the employers. We got over 2,000 employees at Heineken, and making their lives easier at work, getting the balance right between work and at home, making the technology work for you, not against you, is really important. And then very close to home for me in the area that I work, using tech to improve our sustainability. If we sort of move on, we know we're all striving for that sort of efficiency and seamless service, particularly with our customer experiences I've just been talking about. But things have evolved. We've got online ordering platforms now. We're using our mobile phones more and more to communicate. What are the next stages for sort of consumer devices?
So new consumer devices are coming actually, especially next year. We will talk about that when we talk more about the future. But I think we can still make more of the current device, which is the mobile phone. So we obviously use it, as you mentioned, for seamless fulfillments, QR codes, touchless payments, but we should do more on the customization side. And I think also we should do more in making those experiences less clinical and cold. Whenever you put too much automation, there is a bit too much of this, this lack of feeling of human side. So we can find better ways of using current devices that way. And as I mentioned earlier, rewarding people, your staff, and also your customers through digital technologies. There is one that I wanted to mention because it's perhaps a bit newer, but we are starting to use it as well at the Wall Street Journal. POAP stands for proof of attendance. It's a proof of attendance protocol, and this is a token that is free to create. And it's a token that a user can earn. You can share with your users only if they do certain thing for you or if they came to a specific moment. And people are starting to collect this. It's like the new collectible, and it's free for businesses to use, and it's very exciting. So that's a new technology. And then in terms of hardware, I think hardware and devices, we're gonna talk more about this later, but wearable technology. Finally, when I specialized on this, 2003, that's crazy. Finally, wearable technology is more pervasive, and that means people are more aware about their health, and the quantified self trend is really growing. So just pay attention. Actually, you will be surprised how many of the guests that come to your premises perhaps are already wearing a smartwatch, and what that means in the impact of their lifestyle and their choices for the future, as well as we will see more smart glasses appearing. And I don't mean like chunky AR glasses, just simple glasses that look like normal glasses, but they have the audio assistant integrated, how that can help your staff be not only appear more knowledgeable because they will have the answers that they need for you right there in a very invisible way, but also more efficient. They don't have to go back and forth to see if a dish it's still available or not. So there is a lot of things that smart frames, I'll call them, not smart glasses, smart frames are going to bring into the business.
As more and more technology is out there, how do we keep it accessible, particularly for say the elderly or the older who are maybe struggling to keep up with so much change?
Technology is actually more and more becoming very natural and intuitive. You can take a new device and it doesn't take too long to understand what's going on. But we must not forget that that's not as easy for everyone. And yeah, especially other generations that are just not digital natives, they might find it difficult. And we find ourselves in this moment where we have more access to, we're more connected than ever before, but loneliness is on the rise. And especially for that generation can feel very frustrated to find more blocks into their lives and how they feel they're meaningful in society. So I think it's a very, very fair point, and something that we can do is to use all the possibilities that technology gives you, which is not just text, but audio, video, and images and graphics, to use that more. So at the moment you will, for example, take a QR code and you mostly will receive a text. But what about having the audio version of this or more of a visual aid? Also, we should not just take for granted and think that everyone has these devices with them, or even that they are fully smartphones like you used to, like an iPhone. Like my dad still uses a flip phone that has no touch screen. So more and more we see that actually you can have on site, you can have a screen that the customer can use, and not just for ordering things, but also for questions and assistance. So you can have a few of those in the space or even on the tables, and not just imagine that everyone has their own device and knows how to use it. Then obviously educate as much as possible, because anytime you make anyone more confident about using technology, it's going to help them everywhere in their lives, not just when they interact with you. So it's a good purpose to have, to educate more. And also most of the time, this kind of technology education is intergenerational. So you get the younger people to interact more with the older people. So it's actually a very nice added benefit, especially if we talk about loneliness, to upskill even your customers and do more intergenerational knowledge exchange.
I think there's probably some good examples from within our industry if we bring it close to home. I think those businesses who are most aware of their staff and their customer dynamics and their demographics are probably ahead of the game at this, providing a mix of options for different customer consumer types. And I think the important piece behind that is also then the training and the capability that follows behind the tech. And that doesn't have to just come from the business that you work for or from your colleagues. People talked earlier today. I learn as much from my kids about, I've got teenage kids on their phones all the time. The amount I learn about the capability of their phone and my phone, what's going on social media that I probably wouldn't have interacted without them is quite scary at times, some of the things they're up to. But if we look specifically at the area of sustainability, are there specific things that we should be looking at, particularly in the hospitality industry? So
what's growing, and I think it's very important, and I guess, with the work that you're doing as well, it's smart sensors. It's actually how we can measure more of what's happening in the business. So that's very important because of how smart cities are going to be interconnected, and all the knowledge and all the data from the systems and the performance of a business are going to be interconnected. And from that, you can definitely manage much better, for example, waste and resources and energy. So sustainability has, in a way, so many angles. But I think on the predictive side is probably where we're better at. So as a whole, I imagine that the more you can do to understand what kind of knowledge you can have directly with sensors and data, and also find out more about what's happening in different areas of Britain with smart cities initiatives and how you can be part of that. Now, for example, in the Wall Street Journal, every time someone visits our metaverse, we plant a tree for each visitor. And we made this very transparent, and it's kind of gamifying how people interact with us in the metaverse, because people know that by taking part on it, they're at least planting a tree. So I don't know, in a way there is many areas, but smart cities is really the big game changer, I think.
And it's interesting to hear you talk about data. We've obviously got data experts who we've heard from today and in the audience, and obviously that's probably where a lot of us are at the moment, reactive data analysis, but the elixir is really moving it into preventative and predictive analysis, at the danger of moving completely out of my comfort zone. Can we talk a little bit about how AI can help with some of that predictive elements, and let's start at the very basics. What is AI, and how can we use it, particularly in the hospitality industry?
As a whole, we can define intelligence in any animal, human, or technology as the ability to predict. If you think about it, whenever you feel stupid for something you've done, you almost feel like, oh, I should have predicted that this was going to be the outcome. And as a whole, we learn through experience. That how humans learn is through experience and repetition. You learn, you create patterns, and then those patterns become actually what we call intuition. Is not intuition. It's a very clever AI that runs in our brain. We're trying to teach AI to do this. Rather complex. But you have to separate what before was called AI, which was just pure automation. So you have a decision tree, and an AI, which is not really AI, but you will call it that way, will just go through the decision tree, which is like, if this happened, if this, then that. If this happened, then do that. That's not so predictive, because that is totally pre-designed, and it's pre-designed by a human. So obviously it has a lot of limitations to react and adapt to change and to see patterns that humans cannot see. We have a general intelligence, which is very useful for problem solving because it's cross-disciplinary, but we don't have an in-depth data analytics memory. AI can add this to us. So in a way, I don't know, I hope that explains a little bit the basics of where AI is. With neural networks, what we are doing is kind of replicating how the brain learns, so that AI can help us see things and patterns that are adaptive. I hope that explains it better. And then in terms of the benefits, there's two benefits. One is we're going to see more these two words coming up. You have probably heard about digital twins a lot, but then what is a digital twin and what is a virtual twin? I'll try to explain the difference. It's very basic. A digital twin is a way of having a digital version of your industry, where all the data happens live, and you can manage things at a distance and see exactly what's happening, and it goes both ways. Something that happens in the real world is visible in your panel, in your digital twin panel, and anything you change in your digital twin panel will affect the mechanics or the management of the industry. The virtual twin, though, is how you use that and the learnings of running that to run future predictive models. So you have a digital twin for your everyday and a virtual twin, which is kind of the same, but where you can run future scenarios and see real time what will happen if X changes. And I think that's where the biggest value is on how we're going to be using data and digital twins. So it's basically how you can see better what's happening in your business, communicate better what's happening and how your business is impacting different areas that are important for your consumer, and how you can be prepared. I think in a way we call AI a way of giving humans a superpower, so giving you the senses that you're not born with. And in terms of jobs, you can really reassure your staff that an AI is there as an assistant. Just imagine you told each of your staff that they're gonna have an assistant, like for them, to assist them with anything so that they can focus on the most important part, which is probably the human element of the business. So that's a better way to see AI, not as a threat. Yeah.
Yeah, I think listening to you can see the myriad of different directions that this can go in. My business brain is immediately thinking, that sounds expensive. And when we're competing, many businesses competing, for investment, either from within our business or outside investors, weighing up returns on investment, where to invest. For the lazy amongst us, are there any of these technologies that are, almost silver bullets that can help us solve multiple problems with one or two simple technologies?
With one, well, let's see, obviously that varies depending on where you're at. I think the best way to look at it is, again, how we started this session, which is the why, the purpose, before the what. So many times people come to me and they'll be like, oh, we want to do something in VR because we have to do something in VR. And I'm the first one to actually talk them out of it and say, like, wait a minute, why? You can't just tick the box, no? In terms of investment. You have to make sure there is a purpose behind it. We're lucky today that a lot of the business purpose and solutions for the business match the purpose of your consumer. And that has a lot to do with sustainability, for example. So first, if you really, really have to prioritize, look at which purpose matches both the business purpose and the consumer purpose, because then you really invest in something that has this dual edge. So I find that, quite the, I think, easier. But as a whole, innovation is definitely not a nice to have. And I have had this in my career a lot. And actually, I lost a lot of work during the pandemic because budgets were cut. People didn't know what to expect. And very, very soon afterwards, just a few months afterwards, everybody was coming back like, oh no, innovation is the differentiator. We need you back. But it was difficult for a while because people was just cutting budgets everywhere. So innovation is not a nice to have, and actually you should see yourself as a tech business. All of us now in any industry, from healthcare, hospitality, and so on, we are all tech businesses. So it's no longer just a separate industry. You are part of it. I think that's the main focus I had, and obviously knowledge, data will be one of the key investments that just runs through everything. I don't know, for the smart dispenser, in a way, you're working in that area, so how your technologies are also filtrating through all the business, how do you prioritize there?
I think the story of SmartDispense is probably an interesting one in terms of where you choose to invest. If we've learned nothing since we've launched the system, it's listen to your customers, be flexible, and as you talked about, create value, invest where you can create value for your customers, value for your own organization. The story of SmartDispense is about pivoting across those different value chains and those different customer demands. We started out really focusing on quality and consistency of draft dispense delivery because we felt at the time that was a pain point within the industry. But we very quickly learned actually from some of those early adopter customers that it was actually the simplicity and the ease of use and the operational efficiency which was also really valued and a big benefit. So you pivot and you put your investment in that because it's something that your customers tell you is valuable. And then, as the sustainability agenda has grown and grown, then we suddenly start looking at that aspect of SmartDispense and the fact that it reduces the amount of energy that is used, so we invest in that. And if you bring that right up to today, and very topical, already talked about energy pricing going up. The flip side of the sustainability coin, if you can reduce the amount of energy usage, then you're inevitably helping people reduce their costs as well, which we all know in this room is a real challenge. So constantly thinking about where am I creating value for the customer. And then particularly pertinent to this conversation, as we keep innovating with SmartDispense and other technologies, you're starting to look at how do I evolve the digital connectivity so that I can get preventative and proactive measures out of the technology, and just keep developing the technology to match the needs of our consumers and our customers. Are there any other key technical advantages that you would say that we should be looking at from a hospitality industry perspective?
I think, well, I mean, one of the advantages from understanding better the metaverse, dipping your toes a little bit there, and I think I've heard that Heineken is also starting, is the new generations. So I think something interesting to understand, not just about the new generations, but as a whole, what has happened post-pandemic is that people are no longer just in a physical space. People had to find new ways of finding like-minded, hanging out with like-minded people, and that's where games have been very successful. And I'm not talking just about Gen Z, actually. Being in games is a way of hanging out with like-minded people that started to expand during the pandemic, and it has continued now. So what happens with these spaces is that you should not see them as there are other realities there. I have my reality, and then there is the metaverse reality or the virtual realities and so on. They're all one reality. It's just that we are allowing ourselves to be whoever they want to be, whoever we want to be, wherever we want to be, independent on your location. And that translates for brands. And we're just seeing the beginning. So the opportunity to start having a presence in the metaverse means having a presence where people are at, which before was physical retail, physical real estate, and now is virtual real estate. And I think in places like the Centraland or the Sandbox are virtual real estate spaces where I think in 2001 they reached about a value of $500 million that brands and people spent in those worlds. And that's predicted that by the end of this year it could be $1 billion. And it's basically understanding in a way the psychology behind gaming and participation. People just want to be part of something. So one thing is Netflix, watching a movie and kind of escaping that way. And another thing is being part of it and building community. So I think that's very important. And when you hire people, do ask people what they do in their spare time, what kind of hobbies they have, because the more tech savvy you start infusing your staff, the more you can learn from them actually, and to listen to them. So you can have staff that are gamers, or maybe it's a student of robotics. Anything like that will definitely impact your business positively. And I think from new generations also we need to understand that they like to be more active. So a way of attracting them is how do you appeal to them being more active, and I mean physically active and being social activists as well. I think those tick definitely the box of Gen Z. And if I go, I think in the interest of time, I'll just rush through the 5 to 10 year, a few things on a more futuristic side is to think that the more we surround ourselves with technology, actually the opposite happens, where we crave for human connection. And it's unthinkable. We can have anything around us, but we have more polarization than ever, more loneliness, and so on. So definitely, I think businesses will have this dual this dual technological effort of becoming very efficient in fulfillment, and we know this by ghost, you know, the idea of ghost kitchens, which is actually expanding very rapidly and having a lot of value. Then at the same time having a very good personal side. So I think finding a way of growing those two and balancing that with more technology comes the need for more human interaction. That's kind of on the social side. But then on the technology side, we're going to see more wearables. And if you think about it, the iPhone already has had its 15 years of omnipresent into our lives and expansion into our lives. It's the time for the new tech to come, and it's very exciting. We're going to see, especially towards the end of 2023, with the Apple release of their own smart glasses, we are going to start seeing how technologies will allow us to be more present because they are going to be embedded in our glasses. There's going to be like a 5-year transition. So now it's 15 years after the iPhone, which was in 2007, and it should have been now when we are wearing glasses, but the pandemic for 2 years have affected a lot how hardware is developing. But yeah, think of everything you could do yourself if your staff had smart glasses with them, but also how that's going to change the lifestyle of your consumers, how they're going to be more present wherever they are and they're not like looking at their phone all the time, and how they're going to have more knowledge than yourself about everything they want and desire. So definitely customization is also on the rise. We could go on for much longer. Drone delivery, robotics for fulfillment, drone for deliveries, and self-driving cars, which in the States and Texas, for example, are things that the companies are already doing. And I'll finalize just with Web3. It's a huge subject, but the main thing you need to know about Web3 is that we're going to move into a more decentralized way of getting people to be part of what you do. So imagine that everyone that comes to your establishment and your staff has a little bit of a stake on your business by decentralizing how you interact with people and tokenizing and gamifying how you interact with people. They are more responsible for everything they do when they interact with you. That's kind of a very simple way to put it, but Web3 is gonna bring decentralized autonomous organizations, DAOs, and I will highly advise that you search for the word DAO, D-A-O, decentralized automated organizations, and start imagining what can you do to decentralize some of the things you do, to give the power to the people and make them accountable. Because let go a little bit of control. I think that's the hardest part for a lot of corporations. But Web3 is unstoppable. So
wow, I mean that
definitely
is quite a picture of the future. Strap yourself in, everyone. It's going to be a ride.